So tonight we're going to hear another story, another way of looking at life, another way of looking at the journey. And Ahava Emunah, as a member of this community, has been active. She's been our lead runner in the marathon for several years. Her husband is an inspiring person as well. The children, they're all with you on the journey. And I just want to thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Do you hear me well speaking with the microphone in this way? So I've already been introduced, and I see many friendly faces in the audience, many of my friends, many people who I know from close and from afar. As you can see, I come without computers and notes, and I prefer to speak directly from my heart in the moment. I'll just give you a little bit of background for those of you who don't know me. My journey with a life-threatening illness started, I'm on my 4th year, that's what I'm saying. In July 2012, basically leading up to the actual diagnosis, I'd been feeling unwell, tired, lack of appetite, feeling full without eating very much. I was actually at the time 36 years old and trying to become pregnant with a sixth child. And I had never experienced infertility before and was having difficulty getting pregnant. And I visited various doctors, and the main answer was, you know, you're a mother of 5 children, and you're a very busy woman, and you know, you are 36 years old, and 36-year-old women with 5 children are tired and can have these kind of symptoms. And unfortunately, I did not have the idea of taking myself to a gynecologist or to a different type of professional. And what ended up happening to me was I had spotting, which was unusual, and I immediately knew that something was wrong, and took the first appointment that I could get to see a gynecologist that I'd never met before, which is an experience in itself, not very pleasant. And was told to, at first he took a look and said, "Oh, I see, how far along are you? I see there's something in the, oh, wait a minute, that's not in the uterus, that's outside of the uterus." And then I was like, what's going on? Am I pregnant? And he said, be quiet. I can't think, just be quiet. And it was a very emotional experience for me. I went alone, and my husband had gone to work, and it was during the summer, it was July, my children stayed at home. And basically the doctor told me, what you need to do right now, he gave me a bunch of papers and said, you need to go to the emergency room and look into this further. And I knew that my husband was in Renana at work and that I had 5 children at home. So my first thought was, well, can I do this tomorrow, next week, maybe something, work things out, have someone look after my kids? And he said, no, you need to go immediately now. I got on the phone with my husband and said, you need to turn around and come home and watch the kids. I need to drive to the emergency room. That was my second mistake, was going to the emergency room, driving myself to the emergency room, where I was immediately sent for a CT and told some very, very scary details about what was going on inside of me. And the bottom line was that I had what appeared to be advanced ovarian cancer, that they saw not only that the 2 ovaries had basically just grown together into one giant mass, but they also saw various masses in my liver. And I was hospitalized overnight I was alone. My husband stayed with the children, and I chose not to alarm my family before I had more details, and it was a very difficult time to be alone in the hospital. And I was very lucky that my brother happened to call me and say, hey, can we come over and hang out? And I said, I'm actually at Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital, and he immediately got in his car and drove, and he stayed. He was my surrogate husband for the time, and I can dwell a lot on what happened, what should have happened, what I could have done differently, but I'm actually here to help educate and pass on some, in a continuation to what Dr. Gedalia began, of how people in the community and how people around us can not stick their feet in their mouths, as was originally said. Now, I definitely have a different approach to my illness than Dr. Gedalia has. And so I want to preface my entire talk here tonight with, I can only speak for myself. And my bottom line is, no matter who you are, we all suffer from some type of cancer. Every human being is born with their weaknesses and with their strengths. And I prefer to view my illness as one of the things that I was born with. That with my faith, I believe that Hashem, installed this cancer, or the future of having cancer in me, along with all of the other brachot that I was born with, whether it be physical and superficial, green eyes, a dimple, or, I'm not very good at math, but I am, good at relating to people. And I'm a very open person. Like Dr. Gedalia, I do not have a fear of opening my mouth. And from day one, I decided that I was going to be open about my illness and share it. And one of my talents is writing. So I right away got on the computer, and I had already started a blog a number of years ago, and I started just writing. And many ideas came to me, and ever since I've been writing, both for myself and for a larger organization called Chavriya that some of you might have heard of. If you're on Facebook, you've definitely seen some of the things that I've written. And to just take a few steps backwards, after I was diagnosed with having some form of advanced ovarian cancer at a very young age. Ovarian cancer is actually a cancer that is more common in postmenopausal women who are in their 50s and 60s. So when women come in and are diagnosed with advanced ovarian cancer in their 30s, the first test that doctors want to perform is a genetic test, and I'm very, very open about that I am a carrier of the mutation of the BRCA1 mutation, BRCA, which stands for the BR being breast and the CA being cancer. And I do not have breast cancer. I have ovarian cancer, which is the rarer part of the BRCA mutation and the manifestation of the BRCA mutation. And my point in mentioning this is that ovarian cancer is not often diagnosed early, I think, which is also similar to what Dr. Gedalia said about uterine cancer. And the original idea was that I had stage 3, B, or C, They felt that in the surgery that they had removed all of the cancer, and there was a question about what was in my liver, and it was decided by the top radiologists that were available that those were not metastases, that those were hemangiomas, which are blood vessels, and they decided that I was stage 3, and that my chemotherapy would be a mop-up job to give me bitachon, to have a refuah shlema and continue on ad 120. And unfortunately, that's not the case with me. And after finishing chemotherapy, I recurred. We started seeing evidence of a recurrence about 7 months after I completed chemotherapy. And I went on to require another session of chemotherapy. And when I finished, I went into a clinical trial. Some of you are aware of that. That was a very big, unfortunately, news story. And the drug company refused to unblind the study, regardless of we had a contract that if my disease advanced, that they would unblind the study and would let me know if I was receiving the drug or the placebo. Thanks to a very supportive community, we were able to reach an agreement with the drug company, and I received my answers. And to bring us to today, I currently have active cancer and tumors that are growing, hopefully at a slow rate. And I am currently not receiving any treatment, and we're, as similar to Dr. Gedalia, I also am very reluctant to go back on chemotherapy, and it's a very difficult decision that we're going to need to make in the near future, and that too is not necessarily part of this evening. So to move on to why I'm here. How can I help the community? How can I help my friends and my neighbors and strangers? And how can you take something away from this evening and feel more confident, or be able to pass on some information to some of your friends and your family? I have to say that on my journey with cancer, which has now been diagnosed as stage 4 metastatic, persistent, and incurable ovarian cancer, which right now, as you see, I appear to be a healthy and strong woman, and I definitely relate to what Dr. Gedalia said about, one of the first things that people say to me when they see me, whether they're friends or strangers, is, "You look great." I think in our society, we equate weight loss as healthy. I have good color, thank God. I'm a runner, and I'm a healthy person, but I happen to also have cancer. And I can definitely relate to what Dr. Gedalia said, and I feel sometimes that I do need to defend myself and say, thank you. I do take it as a compliment that you think I look great, but however, I have stage 4 persistent, incurable disease. And with that, like Dr. Gedalia said, comes guilt. When I had my first recurrence, I was recommended by a very dear and very brilliant Rav to change my name. And he's the author of Ahava Emunah, and right now my chemo brain is not allowing me to. Rav Arush. Rav Arush told me that I needed to take on a new name, and that the name would come to me, and I would know what that name is, and I was a little bit shocked and thought, how is that going to work exactly? And I was sitting in a shiur with the Rabbanit Emunah Witt. Some of you might know her. And suddenly felt, I want my name to be Ahava Emunah. And after thinking, why would I choose that name? Why not Emunah Ahava? Why Dafka Ahava Emunah? And you know, at that time, I felt that my life was very much in danger, and that there was a very good chance, and I was told by the doctors that there was a very good chance that the chemotherapy would not allow me to have another remission. And I was preparing myself for the next stage, which, you know, of not being above ground. That's a new term that I learned from Dr. Gedalia, the underground. One of the things I'd like to leave here, and it's really my bottom line in life, is that whether we're willing to accept it or not, we are all dying from the moment we're born. There's a very, very large picture out there. The Jewish people, for instance, have existed for thousands of years. And when we look at the Torah and we look up to our avot and our imahot, these are people who lived thousands of years ago. And the time, sometimes the time of things that we read in the Torah are hundreds of years apart, if you think about it. And each of us is here, you know, even if we're here ad 120 for 120 years, that is such a tiny, tiny drop of the larger picture. And I've come to accept that, first of all, none of us knows how long we're going to be here. And there are people who shalom neda, die suddenly. We see that here in Israel, unfortunately, in piguim, in car accidents. There are many different ways that people can die suddenly, even illnesses. And I feel that I've been blessed with miracles, and that has led me to feel God's love. I feel that that cancer for me is not a curse. I'm not angry at God. When I do feel sad, my sadness is not because I may die young. My sadness is because I may leave 5 orphans and a mourning husband and friends and family who love and care about me behind. I am not positive that grabbing on and staying on earth ad 120 is necessarily the best way to go about life. You know, who's to say that earth is so hot, is so awesome? And I've come to believe that I at least feel a purpose. And I know that I have friends who have had to take distance from me, or people around me, and that's fine, because not everybody is open to hearing or accepting or feeling or agreeing with what I feel. But what I feel is that, at least for myself, that my purpose, that I have a purpose here on earth, and that my purpose is to enrich my neshama, to make my neshama large, to the way I like to think of it as a fruit. My neshama, you know, we might be born with a raisin, and with every action that we do, and every bit of chesed, and what we share on life, and that love that we share, or the chesed that we share, or each person has their ability. Each person here has a purpose. And not every person sitting out here has the purpose of necessarily being inside of my inner circle or in the inner circle of somebody with a life-threatening illness. And that doesn't mean that you're not worthy of many mitzvot and many wonderful things. And I think each and every person can contribute to their kihila, to their community in their own way. And I have had amazing zchut to experience chesed on a daily basis from people in my community and in my family, whether it be from up close or afar. And in that way, I don't share the same emotions that Dr. Gedalia feels. What I feel when people say things that could be construed as insulting, and it happens. I think it comes from a place of love. That when somebody approaches me and says something that is inappropriate for whatever it might be, or asks me how I'm feeling, and I don't necessarily feel like going into detail about how I'm feeling at that moment, I see that they are coming from a place of love. And as far as my neshama goes, and being that it's a fruit, I want to make my neshama juicy, and I don't want to die with a prune, and I don't want to die, chas v'shalom, with a raisin. When it's my time to leave this earth, I want to die with a ginormous watermelon. And in order to do that, I feel that my purpose on this earth is love and faith. And we all live with false security. We take great joy in physical pleasure. And that is how Hashem made us. And that is one of the things that we need to, or at least I need to work on. I enjoy new clothing and new shoes, and I enjoy new iPhones and iPads and whatever it might be, a car, decorating your house. And the blessing that I've received from Hashem of cancer has really instilled in me the bottom line. And the bottom line for me is that when I leave this earth, there is nothing that I'm taking with me. There is not a thing that's going to go with me into the ground. Not my diamonds, not my photographs, not my iPhone, not my new boots that I got, in the store that I love. However, I am going to leave something behind. I have a choice of what I leave behind. And when I think of the fruit and the watermelon that I hope to grow my neshama, make it large, I hope to leave behind an Ahava Emunah, that when people think of me, whether it be for a week or a year, or maybe I'll have the zchut for much longer due to the writing that I leave behind or the connections that I make with people. And so when I speak to you about how to interact with somebody like me who has a life-threatening, incurable illness, you're not going to see a sarcastic reaction from me if you say the wrong thing, and you're not going to necessarily know that you hurt my feelings, because I'm not going to tell you, and I'm not going to share it with you. I believe that each person has circles. People who connect with movies like Shrek, that ogres are like onions and they have layers. So every human being has their layers. and they have their circles. And there have been articles that have been written about this and have been passed around. And I think it's very important to respect those layers and those circles. And Dr. Gedalia touched on that as well. I, Baruch Hashem, have a very loving, immediate and extended family. I'm very lucky to have both of my parents in Israel and 4 out of 5 of my brothers living in Israel as well. My husband, who is my absolute rock, who accompanies me to every single appointment since the mistakes that I made in the past, doesn't allow me to see a doctor or have a blood test without his presence. And in respecting the circle, it means not every person that knows of a sick person it's not necessarily appropriate for you to visit that sick person. I can't speak about Shiva because that's not my strength. I'm not. Since entering my 4th year of this illness, and from the beginning, it's become very difficult for me to make Shiva calls. I rarely make Shiva calls, and when I do, it's because of a closeness that I have with a person, that they are in my inner circle, and I feel that it would be inappropriate for me to miss a Shiva. When I do Bikur Cholim, I think twice, 3 times, and 10 times whether or not my presence in that hospital room or in that person's home is going to bring something to them. Because while the Bikur Cholim, while visiting of the sick is a mitzvah, and it's a mitzvah that for you, it is not necessarily going to be helpful to that person. And I think it's very important to remember that. I, as Ahava Emunah Lang, am a very open person and very willing to share information with people. I share with my inner circle and the outer circle, including strangers. I personally don't have a problem with sharing information. I take that also as a gift from Hashem, that this illness has given me a voice. It's given me a certain level of, people are willing to listen to me because I have cancer. People are inspired by my words because I have cancer. I might be writing inspiring things. I might be sharing things that are inspirational. And I really do believe that I'm just a vessel, and the fact that I was born with this impending cancer, Hashem gave me a gift of being that vessel. And while many people will disagree that everything happens for a reason, I believe that there is not a single thing that happens without a reason. So I try for myself, when things go wrong for me, or when I'm feeling depressed or sad, which does happen, I smile a lot in public, and you will almost never see me cry, because that is not something that I'm necessarily willing to share with the public and with the outer rings of, my onion. My inner circle is there for me when I need to cry, and when I can cry to my husband, I can cry with my parents, I can cry with my brothers, and with very few particular close friends. And I think it's very important to respect those circles. And when approaching me, I always appreciate that when I know that I'm in people's thoughts, and I very much appreciate that there have been Tehillim groups formed by dear people in the community who I know are davening for me and are encouraging and bringing other people. I believe in the value of the prayer and the Tehillim that are being said for me. And those things are being done from afar. Those things are not being done in my home, and those people are not necessarily coming into my space. And I'm very, very thankful and grateful for the respect and the understanding of that need for physical privacy sometimes. And that's basically my bottom line. I can't really think. I have maybe one example that I can share with you of something that recently had actually hurt me, and that was coming from somebody who was very well-meaning, and from somebody who I know cares about me and loves me, but sent me, we have instant connection. We don't need to see each other face to face to send articles via Facebook or text messages or emails. And unfortunately, I recently received a link to an article entitled "Not Everything Happens for a Reason." And I out of respect for other people's feelings, I can say that's okay. If that's the way you feel, and that is, not everybody can flow with cancer as a journey, as I do. Cancer is part of my journey. I'm running with it, not away from it, and it's part of who I am now, and it's probably my main occupation right now is dealing with the daily purgatory of, okay, what's going to happen? Am I going to die like in 2 months or in 2 years or 5 years, or like what's going to happen? And nobody can tell me. And that purgatory is excruciating. It's while I'm physically healthy, besides the cancer, and I'm able to run, and I'm able to care for my children, and I'm able to do things physically. The difficult part of my illness right now, today, is dealing with the unknown and the lack of control of what's going to happen to me. I know I'm going to. I know at the end of the day I'm going to die from this disease. That's pretty much known to me, regardless of the miracles. Even though we get miracles every single day, and I believe that God loves me and is giving me many miracles, the fact that I'm standing here more than 3 years after such a diagnosis is an absolute, for me, an absolute fact that Hashem is intervening in my situation, and I'm here, and I'm alive. And when their time comes to pass on into the next world, they haven't lost a fight. I'm not here to fight. And it's difficult for me when people call what I do a fight, because I'm Ahava Emunah, love, faith. I'm not a warrior, and I'm not a fighter. I am a liver and a lover. And I want to be here, and I want to live, and I want to inspire, and I want to influence, and I want my neshama to grow into a watermelon. But I don't want to be viewed as a warrior, and I don't want to be viewed as a soldier. I don't connect with that, and there are those that do, and that helps them, and I respect that. In my case, it doesn't speak to me, and when I received the article that said not everything happens for a reason, I thought, okay, a good friend sent this to me. I'm going to open up the link and I'm going to see maybe this article. Sometimes there are, headlines that are meant to draw your attention. Not everything happens for a reason. What do you mean not everything happens for a reason? Let me see what this person has to say. And I got to the second paragraph and I had to stop reading it because it was just for me, it was too painful to accept that there could be a possibility that there's not a reason. Like, what? I just got cancer, stam? Like, I don't believe that to be a possibility. And I prefer to view my journey, and I call it a journey, a masa, as something. I prefer to see the positive in it, and I prefer to see the opportunity for others to do chesed. As a complete control freak, I had to give up a lot. I've had to make a lot of sacrifices. I consider them sacrifices in accepting help from others. When I was in chemotherapy, meals were provided to me like manna from heaven, and that is completely due to the unbelievably kind community that I live in. The members of my shul and outside of my shul, members of Beit Shemesh wide and Ramat Beit Shemesh, and perfect strangers have provided things for me and my family, and it's been difficult for me to accept that chesed and that kindness. And I receive beautiful baked goods, and I receive beautiful gifts from people who I know love me and care about me, and there is guilt that comes with that. And I think it's important to be aware of that, not necessarily to change how you interact with that person, but to be aware that people who have life-threatening illnesses suffer from not only the physical illness, but from the emotional illness that comes with it, that can go to levels that are pathological, that would be abnormal for a person, for anybody else. But people who have cancer and are living in the purgatory somewhere between life and death on a daily basis, suffer terribly from anxiety and from fear, and have panic attacks and lose sleep at night, and have need for drugs that only psychiatrists can provide. And I'm not a mentally ill person, I'm not a depressive person, but I will tell you that I suffer terribly from anxiety and worry, and those are in my inner circle probably suffer worse than I do. And I think that we need to be aware of the suffering of the inner circle of those who have life-threatening illnesses, whether it be the husband or the wife, the children, the close friends. We need to be aware of their suffering as well. And the chesed that it might be your tafkid in life to provide chesed for somebody who's sick or dying, and it might be your tafkid and your purpose in life to provide that support for their inner circle. And that too is a great chesed and a great mitzvah, in my opinion, and perhaps even greater than the providing for the actual sick person, because I'm provided for by Meuhedet and provided for by the socialized medicine in Israel, and I'm provided for by Bituach Leumi. But my inner circle is not provided for necessarily, whether it be my parents or my siblings or my children or my husband. And we've been very lucky as well in our kihila, in our community, that I do believe that there is a level of support that has been given at times for my husband. But it's very, very difficult for me to stand here and preach to you about how you should interact with others who have an illness, because the only person on this earth that I can change or affect, that I could really change, is me, is myself. And I've made the conscious decision that my reactions and my actions are to build and leave a legacy of love and faith. And that's why I believe that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent me the idea of the name Ahava Emunah, and I pray every single day that I can live up to that. And that's what I hope to pass on, and that's what I hope to leave behind, because I'm not taking anything with me when I leave. So that's my message, and I'm very open and happy to if anyone would like to open a discussion or would like to ask questions. Have no fear. I will not take offense. I will not get angry or upset. Or, in fact, I feel honored when people give me that honor of being able to help. And that's part of why I connect so much with Gisha l'chaim. And I was so excited when Tishkofet, I actually never really understood what Tishkofet meant, but in my interaction, I've had a long relationship with the organization, and I see that what Gisha l'chaim, the name Gisha l'chaim is exactly what I'm talking about right here. And that's us making our choices, how we are going to live our journey and what we're going to leave behind in this world. And I believe that the organization Gisha l'chaim, in taking into account the community, in the dealing with the spirituality, the emotions, not just the illness, not just how can we provide money for somebody who needs a very expensive surgery somewhere. There are other organizations who do that, but I feel that Gisha l'chaim is very much about providing and offering the emotional and spiritual guidance that is very much needed for people like me who have a life-threatening illness. And to go beyond that, I'd also like to add that in being a young mother, relatively young, Bezrat Hashem, I'm turning 40 next month, but I'm relatively young to be dealing with this type of illness, and I'm relatively young to be thinking about leaving behind, actually knowing that I'm going to be leaving 5 children and a husband behind. And that's why an organization like Gisha l'chaim is so important and so necessary and has so much to offer to our community, and we're very lucky here in Beit Shemesh to now have this branch of what was known as Tishkofet and is now Gisha l'chaim, because it doesn't exist in every city, and we're very lucky. And I hope that part of what you come away from after hearing me speak is ratzon, is the desire to become involved with the organization, or if you know of someone who is looking for something to enrich their lives with, that there are courses offered by Gisha l'chaim to become a milava ruchanit, which is a spiritual guide, spiritual therapist or guidance, which I'm sure there are many people sitting here who have the ability to be that person, for somebody who maybe doesn't have the strong inner circle that I have. Not everybody has that, and I think, and I believe that people in our community, knowing the chesed that I've received from both friends and strangers, that there are people here who have so much to give, and Gisha l'chaim will welcome you and your support. And I would just like to, if there's any more time, if anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment, I would feel honored to hear your words or to answer your questions.
I know everybody's different, but would you say, in your opinion, that it's better for somebody to risk, like, instead of, is it worse to just ignore and because you're afraid not to say something that's wrong? In your opinion, the way you are, would you rather have somebody risk saying something that might, like you say, be insulting or hurt you, God forbid? Is it better that you take the risk, that we take the risk to say something?
I think we're all different. There are people in the community who have cancer that you don't know about because they don't share it. It's not their thing. They are private and they don't want to share it, and you don't know about it. And then there are people like me who sometimes overshare. There's a wide range, and I think every person is different. I think that, like any conversation or any approach that you would make to any human being, to try to read the body language or to know what your relationship is with that person, and based on that, how you're going to interact with them. Certainly don't ignore a person if you know that they are suffering or that they have an illness. I wouldn't say ignore them, but you can gauge a person. There are some people who like being hugged. I'm a hugger, and I invite hugs, and I steal hugs. And then I sometimes can feel like maybe that person's not so keen on my hug, but I'm the one with cancer, so. And to be aware, like, we're very much, I believe in Judaism. We're very much connected with how we treat a person, how we talk about a person. I think it's important to preserve the privacy of others. If somebody shares information with you, not to share it with somebody else. The basics of what we learn, like from time, from there's. You can kind of gauge a level of comfort, and I'm a very open person. If somebody comes up to me and says, I want to visit you, or I receive a phone call, can I come and visit? I can say yes, or I can say no. If you know a person to be somebody who's more closed, and maybe timid or would be thinking more of your feelings than theirs, then obviously you're going to have to be more careful with what you say or what you ask for. But I would definitely say don't ignore somebody. That's a bad feeling, to be somebody who has an illness and to see someone in the supermarket and just, whoa, I don't want to talk to them. Just hi, I've been thinking about. Oh, it's good to see you. No one can really take offense to that. It's good to see you. I've been thinking of you.
What do you feel is the best thing that any of you, this organization has done the most for you? What is the best thing for you that you appreciate?
I'm going to preface my answer with my illness has had stages. So, I'm in my 4th year, so I'm kind of like more experienced. And in the beginning, one of the things that really helped me was the yoga class. There was a women's yoga class. And it was specifically for women who had, I think it was gynecological cancers. It was women with ovarian and breast cancer and survivors. And that group became very, very, very important to me at that stage in my life, when I was going through chemo the first time. And it became like a support group. We talked about what we were going through. Some of us took, I felt like I could take off my hat and be bald and be proud of my scars and, share information with the other women. I can't say that when I was in my 2nd and 3rd year, I was less open to that. And it became, just hearing the stories again and again, it became too much for me, and I stopped going. I've been helped with therapy as well. In the beginning, I had therapy together with my husband, which was very helpful during the 1st year, and then I continued with one of the social workers who works with Gisha, and that helped me very much. And then I came to a certain point where I just didn't want to talk about it anymore. Like I didn't want to sit in the chair, and I didn't want to be the patient talking about all of those things. And your question actually brings up something that I would like to add. And it's something that Dr. Gedalia touched on. Something that is sometimes difficult for me is the amount. On one hand, there's the bracha of people feeling that I'm approachable and that they can share with me. And there have been many cases within the community and outside of the community of people who, due to my openness about my illness, have come to me and shared that they are suffering from an illness that they're not willing to share with anyone else. Please keep this private and don't tell anybody. And that's been very meaningful to me when it comes from the actual person. But something that is difficult for me sometimes to listen to is when people come to me with questions. My third cousin's mother-in-law was just diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she's 86 years old, and what would you recommend? What do you think? And I'm just like, seriously, like, I have cancer, like, why, like. And like Dr. Gedalia said also, about the mastectomy with the 10 teats of the dog. It's true. People feel, and I love my dog very much. My dog is a member of my family. But if I meet somebody with, who has something that's similar to what a skin condition that my dog has, I'm not going to bring it up with them because it's a little bit insulting. And I think that we all need to be sensitive, no matter who we're dealing with. For me, it's cancer. For somebody else, it's something completely hidden that you don't even know about. You know, somebody might not say hello to you on the street, and you might think, gosh, what a jerk. You know, that person didn't say hello to me. But then, you know, open your heart a little bit and with the, you know, have the ahava and think, you know, who knows what happened to your next door neighbor in the morning. You know, maybe something is going on in their life that you don't even know about. Give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's something that I'm working on and hoping to do as well. How are you is a very open question. In psychology, we learn that. Like when we want, let's say as a therapist, if you're a therapist and you want to bring someone out of their shell, you're gonna ask them open questions because you want them to provide you with more information. I think that there are many exercises that are done, you know, like within like active listening. There's a whole, you know, thing with active listening, and so depending on who you're approaching and who you're asking, and definitely if it's, you know, a neighbor that you're not close with, but that you do care about and you want to express that care, I think that you need to think more on, you know, of a closed. If it's going to be a question, let it be a closed question, or just a comment like, you know, it's great to see you. I'm happy to see you. There's no judgment there at all. You cannot be insulted by somebody saying, I'm happy to see you. And think to every compliment there is, or insult, there's a positive way of doing it and a negative way of doing it. When someone gets their hair cut, and you can go up to them and you can say, you got your hair cut. It looks much better than the way you've been wearing your hair for the last 10 years. Or you could just say, wow, I really like the way you're wearing your hair now. And leave it at that. And there can be no offense taken from that. But I think a lot of times people unintentionally say too much. And if you're sensitive to that and it's important to you to be sensitive to that, really think about your words and think about the message that you want to put across to that person. Even if you need to write it down and think about it and practice in front of the mirror like Dr. Gedalia suggested, I think that that's very valid.
I want to thank you so much, as always.
Thank you.
I just want to close by saying that I think one of the things that I think we're all aware of, is that probably the most important thing is just putting this out there. You know, when the question was, you know, what did the organization do for you? And you've done so much for other people that I kind of wonder about the directionality of that in general. But I really believe that if I had to say the one thing that has happened in the past 14 years since we started this organization, is just being able to talk and being asked the questions and be able to have somebody who has experience and several people who have different experiences say, this is what was good for me. When we started, people didn't want to talk about any of these things. And I think the loneliness and isolation that so many people feel, both on this level of the person who's experiencing a challenge, and as well as the people who are wondering in the makolet whether they're going to say the right and wrong thing, comes from the fear and comes from the stigma. And the fact that you're here today says we've broken that stigma. Because this is part of life, it's part of being mature, it's part of being real, it's part of being human, it's part of the journey of our neshama. And we have to accept that that's God's will. And whether we like it or not, we're going to all make the best of it. And I think we're going to do that by doing it together. So I want to thank you all.